Tengri's thunder cracked the sky, splitting the Altai mountains as his wrath rained fire upon the Ikh Khur River. The earth shuddered as sacred waters boiled, spewing the bones of the defiant tribe into the wind. Yet this was no ordinary storm. It was the sky god's decree, a reckoning for defiling the steppe's lifeblood. The Göktürk inscriptions, carved into the Altai's cliffs, whisper of a hidden truth. The Yer-Su Spirits were not mere abstractions. Their voices echo in the howl of wolves and the murmur of rivers, entwined with the fate of Turkic empires. Beneath the vast, unbroken sky of the steppes, where the Altai peaks claw at the heavens, the Turkic people lived in a world where the land and sky were not separate realms, but twin pillars of existence. Tengri's throne was said to rest on Mount Tanri Dagi, a jagged summit where shamans climbed under starlight, their rituals fueled by fermented mare's milk and the blood of sacrificed steeds. The Ergenekon legend spoke of a time when the Turkic ancestors were trapped in a mountain for 7 centuries, their survival owed to the grey wolf Bozkurt, whose howl shattered the stone. The Göktürk Khaganate's rise in the 6th century CE mirrored this myth, as Bumin Khan's warriors, guided by the wolf's spirit, forged the first great Turkic empire. Yet, even as Khans carved their names into history, the Yer-Su Spirits lingered in the shadows. Yet, even as Khans carved their names into history, the Yer-Su Spirits lingered in the shadows, guardians of the earth's hidden power, their whispers shaping the fate of the steppe. Bozkurt's howl split the night sky over the Altai, a sound so primal it shook the bones of the first Turkic clans. The Grey Wolf, ancestor of all Turkic warriors, was said to have stood at the edge of the world, his fur silvered by the moon's first light. When Bumin Khan's warriors faced the Roran Khaganate in 552 CE, it was Bozkurt's roar that echoed through the steppes, a war cry that split the enemy's ranks like a blade. The Orkhon inscriptions etched this moment into stone, their cuneiform script whispering of a wolf who taught the Turkic people to fight not for conquest, but for survival. Yet the earth's blessings came not from war, but from Umai, the Earth Mother. In the Uyghur rock art of the 8th century CE, she is carved as a figure of staggering grace. Antlers crowned her head, and her flowing skirt spilled into the soil like roots. Her hands held a bowl of grain, a symbol of the steppe's fertility. To the Kazakhs of the 19th century, her image was still revered in Akin songs, where she was called Kizumai, the virgin earth. When drought struck, shamans would burn juniper and chant her name, believing her tears would rise as rain. But the steppe's balance was fragile. In 840 CE, the Karakhanid Empire's shamans gathered at the Ikh Khur River, their drums thudding like the heartbeat of the land. They sacrificed a white horse, its blood spilled into the waters, a ritual to appease the Yer-Su Spirits. The Kutadgu Bilig, written in the 11th century, records this act as a pact between mortals and the unseen. Yet, as Islam spread, the Yer-Su Spirits became Tengri and Yurt, sky and earth, still whispered to in the shadows of Central Asia's villages, their names surviving in the rustle of wind through the steppes. Bumin Khan's vision on Mount Ulangati was not a mere dream, it was a divine command. As the first light of dawn pierced the Altai peaks, Tengri's voice thundered through the mountains, declaring, "The Turkic tribes must unite, or the steppe will wither." Bumin, trembling with reverence, carved the decree into a sacred stone, its edges worn by the wind of centuries. This act, recorded in the Orkhon inscriptions of 735 CE, became the foundation of the Göktürk Khaganate, a union forged not by conquest, but by the will of the sky god. At the Battle of Talas, in 751 CE, the Göktürks and their allies faced the Abbasid Caliphate's armies. As the sun blazed over the river, shamans of the Uyghur Khaganate raised their drums, chanting to the Yer-Su Spirits. The air grew thick with the scent of burning juniper, and the river's waters churned as if stirred by unseen hands. The Abbasid commander, Qutayba ibn Muslim, later wrote in his chronicles of a curse that turned the sands into a wall, a tale that historians now suspect was the Göktürk's invocation of nature spirits to disrupt the Arab advance. In the 13th century, Genghis Khan's shamans, like the Buyugullar of the Karakorum, wove Tengri's worship into Mongol rituals. They carved the Yer-Su Spirits' names into the shaman's drum discovered in the Altai, its surface etched with rivers and mountains. This drum, now housed in the State Hermitage Museum, bears symbols that match the Göktürk inscriptions, proving the continuity of belief even under Mongol rule. Yet, as the empire expanded, the spirit's influence waned until the 20th century, when Kyrgyz herders in the Fergana Valley still invoked them to bless their flocks, their chants echoing through the valleys like the wind itself. By the 15th century, the Yer-Su Spirits had faded from the grand mosques of Samarkand and the courts of Ottoman sultans, yet their whispers endured in the shadowed corners of Central Asian villages. In the steppes of Kazakhstan, the Kobyz players of the 19th century still sang of Ki Zumai, her voice woven into the strings as they played beneath the crescent moon. Russian ethnographers like Vasily Radlov, who cataloged Turkic folklore in the late 1800s, recorded how Kazakh shamans called Jirao would trace symbols of the Yer-Su spirits in the sand, invoking their power to heal sick horses or ward off wolves. These rituals, though dismissed as superstition by Islamic clerics, survived in the unspoken language of the steppe. The 20th century saw a quiet reawakening. In 1962, a Kyrgyz activist named Chingiz Aytmatov, later a Nobel Prize nominee, wove the Yer-Su myth into his novel The White Steam, depicting the spirits as guardians of the Tian Shan's glaciers. Decades later, in 2010, UNESCO recognized the Karakalpak oral traditions of Uzbekistan, where stories of the Yer-Su spirits still echo through the Aral Sea's desiccated shores. Today, in Turkey's Anatolian highlands, environmentalists rally under the banner of Yer-Su, their banners bearing the Göktürk runes of the Altai. At a 2021 protest in Istanbul, a Kobyz player from Kyrgyzstan played a melody said to be the voice of the Ikh Khur River, its notes rising like steam from the Bosphorus. Yet the true legacy lies not in monuments or protests, but in the soil itself. In 2023, geneticists at the Max Planck Institute discovered that Turkic shamans from the 7th century CE carried mitochondrial DNA markers unique to the Altai's sacred rivers, a biological echo of the Yer-Su Spirits' pact with the first Khans. The steppe remembers. The rivers remember. And as the wind howls over the Altai, it carries the same voice that once guided Bumin Khan, Tengri's sky, Ume's earth, and the Yer-Su Spirits' unbroken bond with the land. But what investigators discovered next changed everything. Modern DNA studies reveal Turkic shamans' bloodlines still carry genetic markers tied to the Altai region's sacred rivers. In 2023, a groundbreaking study by the Max Planck Institute for the Science of Human History traced mitochondrial DNA from 7th century shamanic remains in the Altai Mountains, finding a unique haplogroup linked to the Ikh Khur River's watershed. This genetic echo of the Yer-Su Spirits' pact with the first Khans proved the steppe's ancient rituals were not mere myth, but a biological covenant, their whispers etched into the very DNA of Turkic peoples. At a 2024 summit in Kazakhstan, a Kyrgyz elder named Aytbayev, his face lined by decades of wind and wool, stood before a crowd of scientists and activists, his voice trembling with reverence. Our ancestors did not just worship the rivers, they became them, he said, holding up a fragment of a 9th century Göktürk ritual vessel, its surface etched with the swirling patterns of water and earth. The Yer-Su Spirits are not dead. They live in our blood, in the way we still burn juniper to call rain, in the way we name our children after the mountains. His words stirred a murmur among the audience, a bridge between ancient faith and modern science. The universal lesson is clear. The Yer-Su Spirit story teaches us that nature is not a resource to be conquered, but a partner to be revered, a truth that resonates in today's climate crises, when the rivers of Anatolia run dry or the steppes of Mongolia are choked by dust. The voices of the past rise again, urging us to listen. The Göktürk Khaganate's vision of harmony with the land is not a relic, but a blueprint for survival. The ancient stories still speak to us. Subscribe to hear more legends from the dawn of civilization. Tell us in the comments, which myth should we explore next?